The trading post on Kelver 9 smelled of ozone and recycled air. Commander James Fletcher had seen 100 stations like this one, scattered across the frontier worlds where humanity pressed ever outward into the galaxy. The corridors buzzed with merchants hawking salvage tech, mercenaries looking for work, and travelers from a dozen different species going about their business. James wasn't here for trading. He was here for information about the Void Reapers, a pirate syndicate that had been hitting human cargo ships along the rim. Intelligence suggested their leader frequented this station, hiding among the crowds. He moved through the marketplace with practiced ease, his hand never far from his sidearm. The weapon was a standard-issue plasma pistol, compact but deadly. He'd carried it through 3 tours on hostile worlds and never once fired it outside combat zones. That record mattered to him. The crowd thinned as he entered a side corridor leading to the docking bays. Fewer eyes, fewer witnesses. Perfect territory for an ambush, but also perfect for a quieter rest. James had backup waiting 2 levels down, ready to move on his signal. That's when he heard the commotion. A woman's voice, speaking in rapid Vixian, the clicking language of one of the Confederation's newer member species. James didn't speak it fluently, but he caught the distress in her tone. Around the corner, he found the source. A Vexian female lay crumpled against the wall, her chitinous plating cracked along her shoulder, green blood seeping through the fractures. She clutched her side, mandibles clicking weakly. Standing over her was exactly who James had been looking for. Cross, the Void Reaper lieutenant. The reptilian mercenary held a shock baton, still crackling with residual charge. "Where's your husband hiding?" Cross hissed, his translator rendering his words in flat galactic standard. "He stole from us. You'll pay his debt." James's hand moved to his weapon. "Step away from her." Cross spun, his yellow eyes narrowing. For a moment, they stared at each other. Then the mercenary smiled, showing rows of needle teeth. "Human, this doesn't concern your kind. I'm making it my concern." James drew his pistol, keeping it level. "You're under arrest for piracy, trafficking, and about 15 other charges." Cross laughed and raised his baton. That's when the child appeared. She was small, no more than 4 standard years old by James's estimate. Her chitinous plating was still soft and pale, not yet hardened into the deep violet of Vexian adults. She wore a simple gray tunic and clutched a stuffed toy, some kind of 6-legged creature that might have been native to her homeworld. The girl ran straight past James, her small legs pumping as fast as they could carry her. She threw herself between Cross and the wounded woman, spreading her forearms wide in a gesture of protection. "You hurt my mom." Her translator picked up her high-pitched voice perfectly, rendering it in standard with all the fury a child could muster. "Go away, go away." Time seemed to slow. Cross raised his baton higher, and James saw the intention in his eyes. The mercenary didn't care that she was a child. He'd strike her down without hesitation. James fired. The plasma bolt hit Cross's shoulder, spinning him around. The baton clattered from his grip, and he stumbled backward with a roar of pain. James fired twice more, controlled shots that took the mercenary in the leg and side. Cross collapsed, unconscious before he hit the deck. The corridor fell silent, except for the girl's frightened breathing. James kept his weapon up for 3 more seconds, scanning for additional threats. When none appeared, he activated his comm. Back up to Corridor 7D. Suspect down. Need medical. Then he turned to the child. She stood rigid, all 4 arms still spread wide, shielding her mother's body. Her large compound eyes fixed on James, specifically on the weapon in his hand. The stuffed toy lay forgotten at her feet. James recognized that look. He'd seen it before on a dozen different worlds. It was the look of a child who just watched violence unfold and didn't understand if it was over or if she was next. Slowly, deliberately, James dropped to one knee. The motion put him at eye level with the girl, making him smaller, less threatening. He kept his hands visible, the pistol pointed safely at the floor. "Hey," he said softly. "It's okay now. You're safe." The girl didn't move. Her mandibles clicked uncertainly. James set the pistol down on the deck, well out of easy reach. Then he raised both hands, palms forward, fingers spread. It was a human gesture, but one that most species understood. Empty hands, no weapons, no threat. "See? I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt your mom." He kept his voice level, calm. "My name is James. I'm here to help." Behind the girl, her mother stirred, clicking weakly. The child glanced back, torn between watching James and checking on her parent. "It's okay," James repeated. He shifted his weight slightly, moving from a combat kneel to a more relaxed seated position. "That bad person who hurt your mom? He's not going to bother you anymore. Help is coming. Doctors who can make your mom better." The girl's mandibles clicked faster, a sign of agitation or confusion. Her eyes darted between James, her mother, and the unconscious Cross. James stayed perfectly still. He'd learned this lesson the hard way, years ago, on a colony world where his squad had accidentally terrified a group of refugee children while clearing a building. The unit psychologist had pulled him aside afterward and explained that sometimes, especially after violence, children didn't need you to do more. They needed you to do less, to be small and quiet and safe. "You were very brave," James said, "running to protect your mom like that. That took courage." The girl's rigid posture softened slightly. One of her 4 hands lowered, just a fraction. "You know what the bravest thing is?" James continued, his voice gentle. "The bravest thing is asking for help when someone you love needs it. And you did that. You got my attention. You made sure I saw what was happening. That's smart and brave." Footsteps echoed in the corridor. James's backup team appeared, weapons drawn, along with a medical unit pulling a hover stretcher. James held up one hand without turning, signaling them to hold position and approach slowly. "See?" he said to the girl. "The doctors are here. They're going to help your mom. Everything's going to be okay." The medical team moved forward carefully, their movements slow and deliberate. One of them, a Centaurian medic with multiple arms, knelt beside the wounded Vissian mother and began working immediately, sealing the cracks in her plating with bio-foam. The Centaurian looked at the child and clicked in what James recognized as soothing tones. The girl turned, her attention finally pulled away from James to watch the medic work on her mother. James stayed kneeling, hands still visible, until he was certain the girl felt safe. One of his team members, a woman named Rodriguez, approached and knelt beside him. "Good work," Rodriguez murmured. "Clean takedown." James shook his head slightly. Almost wasn't clean enough. The medics lifted the Vexian mother onto the stretcher. Her eyes opened, focusing first on her daughter, then on James. She clicked something, and her translator rendered it, "Thank you, human. You saved us." The little girl picked up her stuffed toy and climbed onto the stretcher beside her mother, snuggling close. As the medics began to move away, she turned her head and looked back at James. Her mandibles moved in what might have been a smile, though James wasn't entirely sure. He raised one hand in a small wave. She waved back with 2 of her 4 arms. Rodriguez helped James to his feet. "Command is going to want a full debrief." "I know." James picked up his pistol, checked it, and holstered it. He looked down at Cross, who was being secured by 2 other team members. "Make sure he gets medical attention, too." "By the book." "By the book," Rodriguez agreed. As they walked back toward the main corridor, Rodriguez glanced at him. You know, most officers would have just stunned the kid, too. Safer that way, less chance of her interfering. James felt something cold settle in his stomach. She was 4 years old and terrified. She wasn't interfering. She was protecting her mother. I know that. I'm just saying others wouldn't have seen it that way. James stopped walking and turned to face Rodriguez. Then others would be wrong. We're not just soldiers. We're representatives of humanity out here. Every action we take, every choice we make, that's what the galaxy sees when they think of humans. I want them to see someone who kneels down for a scared child, not someone who points a weapon at one. Rodriguez smiled. That's why you're the commander, sir. They continued down the corridor together. Behind them, the medical team disappeared around a corner, taking the mother and daughter to the station's hospital. James knew he'd need to follow up, make sure they were properly cared for. Maybe even help find the husband who'd gotten them into trouble in the first place. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The mission was complete. The pirate was captured, and most importantly, an innocent family was safe. In the vast darkness of space, on stations and worlds scattered across the frontier, that was what mattered. That was what separated humanity from the predators and pirates. They could have been conquerors. They could have been tyrants. Instead, they chose to be protectors. And sometimes, that meant getting down on one knee and showing empty hands to a frightened child. That was the real strength of humanity. Not their weapons or their ships or their technology. It was their choice to use that power with restraint, with compassion, with mercy. It was why the galaxy called them